Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the meeting of the Standards Committee of the 30th of July 2026. May I take a moment just to run through some housekeeping points before business starts? May I remind everyone present that the meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded via the internet, and this recording archived on the Council's website for future viewing. Please could all requests to speak be made through the Chair, Mr. Richard Hendicott, during the meeting, and this will be a hybrid meeting. If a participant wishes to speak, can they please raise their hand and wait to be called upon? Requests from participants in the chamber will be monitored by myself, and requests from participants attending remotely will appear on the Chair's screen once they have selected the raise hand button, which you can find on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. When invited to address by the Chair, please could all participants ensure that their microphone and camera is on to ensure that they can be seen and heard when actively participating. Chamber participants may come onto screen by pressing the large activation button on their desktop microphone, and remote attendees may come onto screen by pressing the large activation button in the bottom centre of their screen. No other buttons are required to participate today and should be left unmuted. For remote participants only, please can you ensure that all debate is raised verbally and not via the chat facility for the sake of the recording. A fire drill is not expected in the building today, so if the alarm sounds, please could all chamber participants follow myself to the nearest assembly point at the front of the building. For remote attendees, please stay connected to the meeting and proceedings will resume as soon as possible. Any advice in relation to voting will be provided at the time that the vote takes place. And if I may, just for the sake of this morning's agenda, we do have the group leader duty items on the agenda this morning, which are under part 1 and part 2. So just for the benefit of the group leaders who have kindly joined us this morning, they will come with us into part 2 session, but during the part 2 session, we'll ask you to withdraw and then the committee will deliberate in private, just so that's clear for you this morning. Thank you, Chair. That concludes the housekeeping, and I'll hand over to yourself.
Good morning, everybody. We'll go through starting at part 1. Apologies for absence. Are there any, Amy?
None received, Chair. All members are present and you are quorate.
Thank you very much. Item 2. Receive declarations of interest and the nature of such interests. Are there any?
No indication in the chamber, Chair, and nothing online.
Thank you. Item 3, minutes of the meeting held on Thursday, the 4th of June 2026. I looked at, well, read those through, and they seem to me to be a true record of what happened. Is there anybody who wants to make a comment?
Councillor Charles, you just came onto screen, but your camera was off.
Sorry, I just wanted to move the minutes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So everybody's happy with that. So I'll sign those as being a true record of the minutes of the last meeting. We move on to item 4, which of the reports of the monitoring officer, and the first item is the group leader duty compliance. And I'm grateful to the group leaders for being present. I appreciate they have a busy schedule, but I believe you all made it for today, so thank you very much. Perhaps I can hand over to Vicky.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Committee. So this report comes to us on an annual basis. I think the last time the report was considered was in July last year. So we're looking back over a period of 12 months in the intervening period. So The Welsh Government, when it published the statutory and non-statutory guidance for principal councils in June 2023, introduced an additional duty on political group leaders to appear before the committee and to deal with the requirements under the Local Government and Election Wales Act 2021. As I indicated, the committee last considered the group leader duties in July. It was the 13th of July 2025, and in September and November previously in 2023, the committee approved a revised group leader compliance form and adopted the threshold criteria to assist in determining whether political group leaders are meeting their statutory duties. In relation to the report before you today, as I indicated, the period that the committee will be considering is the period since July 2025, when all 4 political group leaders were present at that meeting. And it's pleasing to see that all 4 political group leaders are present here today or remotely. The duties which are placed on the political group leaders is to encourage high standards of behaviour, support training and development, to promote civility and respect, and to work constructively with myself as the monitoring officer and the standards committee. Group leaders are also required to take reasonable steps to ensure that their members cooperate with the standards process and address concerns relating to conduct as early as possible. The committee, having previously adopted the threshold criteria against which the compliance is assessed, approved a standard pro forma to assist group leaders in evidencing the actions they've taken. And I'm grateful to the group leaders who've each considered the pro formas that are contained with the agenda today, and each have provided their comments and their observations in relation to those requirements. And I think that's all I need to say at this point in relation to this report. There are certain recommendations that the committee will go on to consider. Those will include, and we'll come back to them once we've considered the pro formas. Moving into part 2 is to note the verbal representations that the group leaders have provided. And then subsequently, the committee will be asked to consider whether they wish to determine that the group leaders' Code of Conduct Compliance pro forma, which has been reviewed and is confirmed to be fit for purpose, or not, as the case may be, and that the completed group leader compliance pro formas be considered now and part 2.
Thank you, Vicky. Group leaders, it's a strange comment that you are requested to appear before the committee. It sounds rather onerous. I take the view that we are working together on this. Vicky, do we take it in turns for the group leaders? Or how do we play it from here?
Yes, please, Chair. Last year you took it in size of the groups. So we started with the Labour group, then Conservative, then Plaid, then Lantwit first.
Okay, well, I'll take it in the same order. So, Councillor Burnett, you're present, I gather.
I am, Chair. Yes. Sorry, just getting the mic to work.
Yes. Well, thank you for attending. I mean, I've read your report, and hopefully all the others have. I don't think there's anything of great concern, or even of minor concern. As you know, we've done some work on behaviour. I understand that report is with you, the group leaders. Do you know where it is and what's happening on it?
I'm not sure. I'll ask the monitoring officer to come in.
Yes, so if I can just come in.
Councillor Johnson referred to it in his report that they've considered it.
So this relates to, for the benefit of the committee, this relates to the working group that was established by the Standards Committee. They've made certain recommendations in relation to amendments to section or part 19 of the Constitution, and in particular the introduction of a social media protocol. So we're in the process, Chair, of currently consulting all of the group leaders in relation to that report that the working group have produced, and the intention is to report that once we've had those observations, or if there are no observations, to report that on to full council. I anticipate that will now be in September. I think we've got a full council meeting at the end of September. That might be moved, from what I understand, to early October, but certainly around that 2-week period, we'll be presenting that to full council. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. That explained it far better than I did. But
Yeah.
I'm going to ask all the leaders where you are on that, so that we can make some progress.
Well, we have done that. It was quite a while ago, actually. I think that we were looking at it. In fact, I think it was as a result of a motion brought by my group members. It's very tricky to actually get the right approach. It's more from our perspective about having the right behaviours and compliance within members of the council in terms of their understanding of social media and the implications of posts that aren't acceptable or prove to be inaccurate. So I think we'll carry on moving forward on that. As I said, I think it's more a cultural and behavioural issue, and I think that was what my group were coming back to. But yes, it is moving forward. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Do you want to address us on anything, on how you feel the year has gone? Or I will ask the committee if there are any members of the committee who have anything to ask you.
If I just, I mean, I haven't got anything to ask to add to the pro forma. I think, I mean, obviously, as committee are aware that I've been doing work on a sort of Welsh UK and Commonwealth level, talking about some of these issues. It actually remains a challenge across so many areas in terms of how we manage some of the communications outside the council, but also inside the council. But I think that it is something that we will keep revisiting year on year over time, and mindful of the impact that it can have on our residents and the anxiety and distress that it can cause them if we are not strictly adhering to the standards expected of us. Thanks, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Does anybody have any questions? Yes, Janet.
Hi, I've got a question, a more general one, which is probably for all the group leaders. And I'm particularly interested in whether they are keeping evidence of the measures they are taking and in what form that evidence is taken. I was wondering if maybe there could be a section on the form, or if it could be included in the general written submissions.
I think that certainly from my perspective, as I've already laid out, that within our group we have a whip. Any individual, I suppose it was misdemeanors or whatever, would be dealt with in that, and they would be recorded as part of minutes. there also, in terms of political structure, that if there are more serious contraventions, then we actually would deal with them at a party level. So they would be recorded, but other things, because the level of discussion I actually am quite used to having, which, you know, I mean, I have to come at this from a point of my members are actually really well behaved. And so it might be a very simple conversation about somebody's choice of word. And maybe that word was not polite, and maybe there was a better way of phrasing that sentence. That is much more a coaching activity rather than a disciplinary. So for me, with new members and as we go along, there will be either individual conversations, very rare, or sometimes something is brought up as a group in terms of this is a challenge, how would we want to deal with it as a group? So difficult to actually specify those unless it gets to a point where you would involve the whip or the party, or indeed, as would be recorded elsewhere, the council. But I haven't had one of those this term.
Thank you. Janet, are you happy with that, or do you want to come back on it?
Yeah, I am generally happy with it. I'd like to hear the same from the other leaders as well as to what evidence they are keeping. I come from a background of, you know, private enterprise, and even the coaching sessions would have been recorded. Maybe that's not appropriate for this environment. So I would be guided by the rest of the committee on that.
I think it's fair to say that we haven't had to deal with any matters in the last year. I don't know what's been reported to the monitoring officer because we don't get to hear of that. But I mean, generally, everything seems to be running very smoothly. Greg, have you got a comment or a question?
Yes, Chair, thank you. It's a similar question for all of the group leaders. I'm looking at the Appendix C, source and level of complaints and concerns. And there is a section where the group leaders notified. And in most of the, if not all, of these completed sections, it said the group leaders are not notified. So my question is to all group leaders, do you only find out about concerns or complaints after they are resolved, or simply when preparing compliance documents such as these?
Yeah, if you want to.
Sorry, apologies, Greg. I think it's probably going to be helpful if I just come in on that. So what happens is that if I receive a complaint or a concern's raised with me, I obviously consider that in line with the Ombudsman's guidance. And I have to take a view based on the evidence before me, whether or not there is evidence of a breach of the Members' Code of Conduct. And if so, would the Ombudsman, if it was referred to her, take a view that it reached a level where it's in the public interest for that complaint to be investigated? Those that don't fall into that category are dealt with as low-level concerns. And I deal with those on a local level. I may, on those occasions, involve the group leaders. I get a lot of those types of complaints, and very often the majority of them are very capable of being resolved very, very quickly. And obviously those are reported within the pro formas on a confidential basis in the context of each group leader, because they're low level, they're confidential. Sometimes when I receive a complaint from a member of the public, in relation to an elected member, which is dealt with on a low level, I have to seek the consent of the member of the public to disclose that, and I have to have that communication. So that's that category. If
Yeah.
a complaint is made to the Ombudsman, obviously she then makes a decision, or her team make a decision, whether that complaint is investigated. If it is, it's confidential up until the point, if it is referred back to the Standards Committee for hearing. And you'll recall from a previous hearing we've had about 2 years ago, a decision's made prior to that hearing being heard, whether or not that should be heard in public or not. So I don't know if that gives a context.
It does, thank you. It gives context. I was just wondering, and I understand the thresholds for the Ombudsman, but the group leaders, should it not be the case that they are aware of all complaints or concerns, and I understand they have very busy days, should they not be aware of everything that's going on, rather than finding out after the fact to fill in the Appendix C on this report? I simply ask the question of all group leaders. I don't single out one here.
Can I come back in on that? I can just provide examples, really, because you could end up with two conversations going on in parallel. So that if one of my group members tells me that they've received an email and somebody's planning on making a complaint or whatever, I will talk to them about, well, what was the situation? How have you handled that? Actually, normally in that sort of situation, my first piece of advice, if I'm informed, is to tell people to have a word with the monitoring officer. If it comes through in the other direction, because that can be confidential, or might need to be confidential, then there is a wall between us. And then, so when you get one of these pro formas that says that there's been a complaint of some sort, it's sort of like, well, what one was that? And then at that point you can tie up the details. But because it is the complainant that is saying we don't want that to be notified further, so to speak, I would not then get to know. Normally, as I said, I am aware of it from a group member perspective, but haven't been formally told.
I see. I think the operative words are used there, if you were informed.
Yes.
And that's perhaps the question I'm asking. Should you not be aware of all of complaints or concerns? I don't know. I simply ask the question. So then you'd have a better picture, one would have a better picture of what is going on in the party, and not just your party, all parties.
I have to say there has never been a complaint where I wasn't aware of the background of it to a certain extent. It's just a question of it.
Confused with this Appendix C. I have your return here in front of me, and there are 3 complaints. I won't go into the detail, but
that's not
one of the
Excuse me, that's part 2.
No, I haven't gone into any detail.
I
can go wait for part 2 if you wish.
I think we could, because I could end up with unsubstantiated allegations ending up on blog sites.
Could I agree with Councillor Burnett there? Thank you.
We'll wait for part 2. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Janet, do you want to come back?
I just wanted to pick up on Greg's point there, and not going into lower level details, but I think it would be really, really useful going forward. And I understand it's probably not available now, but if we knew at a macro level all the different low level complaints that came through, and I'm not talking about the detail of the complaint, I'm talking about maybe rolling it up, summarising it at a higher level. You could almost see them as key risk indicators. It could inform us that, trouble was brewing.
Yeah, I'm not sure that would fit in with our work. Vicky, have you got a view?
Yeah, it was just to say, Chair, that some of the comments that are being made, I think, can be dealt with. There's a recommendation in the report when this committee decides whether or not they wish to make any changes to the pro forma, so we can have those discussions. And I think we need to be very careful about some of the comments that are being made, because I made it clear when I addressed the committee earlier that there is certain information, and it applies right across all 4 groups. As I say, I receive lots of concerns and complaints which are dealt with on a low level. Some are very insignificant, but they have to be reported, and that cuts across all 4 political groups, as the group leaders are aware. But I really think we need to be careful, and we need to deal with that information under part 2, please.
Thank you very much. Amy, who's the next leader with the largest party?
Yes, if I may, Chair, I can see that Mr. Alexander has come onto screen. His camera and microphone are not currently active. Oh, there you go. Were you picking up on the monitoring officer's last point, Mr. Alexander, or?
I had a more general question, public observation to raise, if that's appropriate, please, Chair.
Sorry, yes, carry on.
Thank you. I've just been wondering about the social media aspects of this. And of course, elected members not only use social media, they are subject to what others say on social media. And it seems to me that political group leaders have a very important role on pastoral support and how that then might impact on standards of behaviour. So I'd be grateful for any observations that political group leaders might have on that. Thank you.
Right. Councillor Burnett, perhaps you'd like to deal with that from your point of view.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to go into that in part 2 if you wish.
Yes, all right. Okay. So, Amy, who's the next councillor?
It would be Councillor Carroll for the Conservative group.
Right. So, excuse my ignorance of the setup. Good morning, Councillor Carroll.
Good morning.
You're aware of this piece of work that we've carried out with the proposed changes to Section 19. Have you dealt with it as the Conservatives?
I have read the proposals. I haven't submitted my observations yet because I'm still in the process of consulting with my group on that. I must confess, Chair, there are a few issues that I think could do with being ironed out with that report prior to it coming to full council. I think that there was one point regarding engagement with anonymous accounts. Now, to give an example,
well, I don't think it's going to help going into it at any detail at this stage. I just wanted, as a generalisation, we've been told that it's out with the group leaders. I think we were told that on the last occasion, and you know, it's coming up for 2 years, and I'm sure we're all anxious that some progress is made. So you are dealing with it.
Yes. Fine.
Is there anything generally you want to comment about this last year?
Not particularly, Chair. I'm obviously happy to take any questions from members that may come up. I'm conscious that members have already raised questions already, so I will. I'm more than happy to deal with those. With regard to evidence, that is very much dependent on the nature of the complaint. I think the issue regarding the informal disciplinary, the informal dispute resolution, which tends to be the areas in which group leaders are involved by the monitoring officer. Obviously, those matters are evidenced by email correspondence to and from the monitoring officer regarding the matter. I must confess, informal conversations I have with group members aren't minuted. That's due to their informal nature, but obviously records are kept of what actions have been taken, and are typically shared with the monitoring officer by email as I explain how the matter has been progressed.
Okay, thank you. Do any members of the committee have any questions of Councillor Carroll? Yes, Janet.
Hi, going back to the evidence part, I
Yes.
was particularly interested in your the discharge of your general responsibilities.
Yes.
So if you have a group meeting and you talk to them about the code of conduct, or you run through a few lessons learned, would you be minuting that because it's as part of a formal meeting?
Yes, I keep record group meeting.
Okay, thanks. I do have an extra question, but I'm not sure if it's appropriate for now.
Feel free to ask, and I'm sure the monitoring officer will advise. I'm keen for these things to be as open and transparent as possible.
I just noticed from your report that 46% of your elected members were still outstanding on the training. And I just wondered if they were scheduled in to do the training at the earliest possible point in time.
Am I okay to answer that under part one?
I would have thought so. I mean, it's a generalisation.
Yes, this will be followed up. I don't have data to hand, but being followed up.
Hi, sorry,
Okay,
that
thank
information isn't in the public domain, so I think it should be considered under part 2.
Okay, anything else, Janet? No?
No, I'm okay, thank you.
Your light's up, that's all.
Okay.
You can remove that, thank you. Okay, well, we'll move on to the next leader. Who's that? Councillor Johnson's name has come up.
Good morning, Richard.
Good morning. I seem to recall reading your report that you've actually dealt with this item, the work that we've done.
With regards to that, we were requested, I mean, on 2 occasions now. I mean, I think, as Victoria has already said, it has been shared with group leaders. So I circulated that to the rest of my group and asked them for any comments. And the last point of time, I hadn't received anything substantial, and that was the comment I made to Amy and I think Vicky a couple of weeks ago.
Good. So I don't know if you need to formally do that, but it may help. How have you seen the last year as a generalisation? As I say, we haven't seen anything, but obviously matters are occurring in the background.
I think we're here as group leaders, sort of indicating our compliance with the with standards regulations. So I mean, if I've had nothing which I think has troubled me in the case of becoming more than an informal query. If it helps the queries from Janet, then I'm happy to minute those meetings where I raise issues regarding asking members to continue to apply the code of conduct. In reality, because there aren't very many issues that are raised with me around group behaviour, that's done sort of more on an annual basis, because those issues don't particularly arise. In terms of, we also had a refresher of the code of conduct during this year. Those who, that took place, I believe, in December last year. We were, I think all group leaders were reminded of anybody who hadn't yet completed that refresher. So I've asked any outstanding members to do that. I'm not aware of any particular issues or problems that I've encountered regarding complaints about my group this year or their behaviour from my perspective.
Thank you very much. Do any of the committee have any questions or comments to make to Councillor Johnston? No? Okay, you're let off lightly. Thank you.
Thank you. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch. We'll move on. I assume it's now Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can I ask you what your position is with this work that we have done, referred to the changes to Section 19 of the Constitution?
My members have considered it, and there are some slightly different views, but however, on the whole, it's supported, and the deadline is for the meeting in September, so I will be forwarding the response back to the Democratic and Monitoring Officer in the coming week. There aren't any major issues within the group. We do have difference of opinion sometimes, but as a group we're very close knit, so we can resolve those. I suppose for me, if there are any differences, then they can be escalated through the monitoring officer, and that in itself and the informal process has worked previously. And there have been occasions where members of the public have put in complaints, and that's difficult because as a councillor you feel constrained in what you can put into the public domain, and there's often a dishonesty and misinformation in some of the information that's put out about councillors, and I don't think that that's been addressed sufficiently. There is work to be done. I recognise that within the changes within the policies we've got is striving to make those changes, but it's clear that there are differences of opinions, which I do believe will come out in the Part 2 discussions later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks on that. Generally, how have you found the last year? Have there been problems, or is it running relatively smoothly?
Well, in a public forum like this, I'm going to say they're running smoothly.
Good. Okay. Are there any questions for Councillor Williams from the committee? No? Okay. Well, thank you all for that. I think it's probably appropriate now we go into Part 2. Is that right, Amy or Vicky?
Yes, Chair, that's correct. Just to confirm before we move on, because your Part 1 recommendations are to note the verbal representations you've had thus far, and whether or not you have any Part 1 comments to make in relation to the pro forma template itself, and that we move to Part 2. So if the committee are happy with those recommendations, then I'll move into Part 2, unless anybody has any further comments. Councillor Eddie Williams is indicating in the chamber, Chair.
Oh, right. Okay, yes.
Excuse me, Chair, for the benefit of the public, I just need to say that although we are going into Part 2, we will need to return to Part 1 for the rest of the agenda items. So just to make the public aware of that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So we'll move into Part 2.
Chair, just to remind you, as we did last year, we go in and come back out of Part 2. So, yeah.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you, Councillor Williams. I was going to address that once we'd covered the recommendations. So are we happy with those 3 recommendations? Yes, there's indication of support in the chamber, Chair. I don't see any dissent online at the moment. So if you bear with me one moment, I will move the meeting into Part 2, and then I'll confirm when we can restart. Hello, Chair. Just checking in with you. It is now 11:30. Would you like any
Fine.
longer for a break, or are
Yeah,
you
well, I'm ready.
okay? If I can just, if you give me one moment, just wish to check that all members are still online with us. Just bear me one moment. Okay, Chair. Yes, so you have your full committee. So I'll hand over to yourself.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Right, we'll go back to part one, number 5, application for dispensation. These, I think, are all Llantwit Major Historical Society. They all look reasonable to me, but Vicky, do you want to help us?
So there are 3 applications before the committee, as you have noted, Chair, all from elected members of Llantwit Major Town Council. The committee has before them the circumstances where they may grant dispensations. The first is Dr. P.D. Ellis. He's a councillor of the North Ward in Llantwit Major. His application for dispensation relates to him wishing to speak and vote on any issue regarding the Local History Society, as he is a member of that society. It's suggested in relation to this application, I suspect the other 2 are very similar, that paragraphs, if the committee refer to the document SC1, it's suggested that paragraphs D, E and F would be appropriate in relation to this application. Do you want me to go through all 3 as they're so similar, Chair, or do you want me to deal with them separately?
No, that's all right. I can't think there's going to be much objection to this, but would anybody like to comment? Gerwin?
It just occurred to me, does paragraph E apply here? Because wouldn't that mean that a significant proportion of the general public were members of the History Society? And they're not, as far as I would assume they're not.
No, I think that's a fair point. So I think we
So,
can
I mean, quite happy with the D and F.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we can go with D and F.
Okay,
Not
so
E.
is everybody happy with that? I shall take silence to mean yes. Thank you. Observation by independent members of the Vale and of Glamorgan Council. Amy or Vicky, which one of you wants to take this?
Yeah, I'm happy to take this one, Chair. So this report is the report that comes to this committee to update the committee of observation visits undertaken by the independent members of the Standards Committee in relation to meetings of the Vale of Glamorgan Council and all the town and community councils. We have a programme, or the committee rather has a programme of work in place. The committee will be asked at the end of the deliberation in relation to this report to note the observation and the comments made by the independent member, and there is only one observation visit for the committee to hear about today, and it relates to the Vice Chair, Gedwin Watkins's visit to Welsh St Donat's Community Council on the 21st of July this year.
Thank you. So, Gerwin, perhaps you could tell us about your visit.
Yes, it was very pleasant to attend a live meeting for a change. This is a small council. It meets in a delightful setting in a community hall, which is on the outskirts of Welsh St Donat's. There were 4 members present in a very large room, as I say, with plenty of accommodation for the public if they choose to attend. The meeting lasted half an hour. There was nothing contentious to discuss, so I've really nothing useful to add or to report. It all ran very smoothly and efficiently. And I hope that when that council amalgamates with another council, that proceedings will continue to run in the same way.
Well, that sounds very good. Anybody want to ask questions or comment?
If I may, Chair, just to say that you can see from Appendix A, which is the tracker document, that there are some community councils that I am waiting to confirm their upcoming meeting dates. So I will continue to seek those and consult with the relevant independent member as appropriate.
Okay, thank you very much. Standards Committee Annual Report. I'm grateful to Amy and or Vicky for drawing this up. Are there any comments on it or anything anybody's unhappy about? Vicky, presumably it'll be tidied up and then will it go to all the members before it goes to the council?
Obviously the annual report is before the committee today. If the committee members have any observations they wish to make or any additions they wish to make to the report, we'd be grateful if we could receive those now, or if that's not possible, in the next couple of days. Amy's nodding, so I think that's acceptable. The report is going to the full council meeting in late September, early October. The date hasn't been fixed yet. And if it's and once it's been considered by the committee, and it will go as a final report, it will be forwarded to the Ombudsman and to the clerks of the town and community councils in the Vale of Glamorgan Principal area. So yeah, I don't know if any of the members have any comments on the report. I'm happy to go through the report if that helps in a very high summarised way, but I'll leave that to committee.
No, I don't need you to do that. I hope everybody follows my philosophy in that all the papers should be read by all the members before we have a meeting. Anybody want to comment on it?
Just
No?
one housekeeping point from myself, Chair. Obviously, following your consideration of the group leader duties earlier today, it's the paragraph on the bottom of page 15 of the draft that I would be confirming with yourselves today, which sets out that the committee, after assessment, agree that the group leader duties have been met.
Yes, yeah, fine. That's okay. Item 8, monitoring officer meetings with clerks of town and community councils.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the meetings with the clerks of the town and community councils were undertaken on a biannual basis. But we received feedback in November last year, and a number of the clerks and town and community council members highlighted that there were significant emerging pressures for our town and community councils, in particular the community councils in the rural Vale. A lot of those pressures came as a result of the Boundary Commission for Wales Community Area Review and the implementation of those changes, the preparation for which has started in earnest now in relation to those community councils which are impacted. So in March of this year, and I've updated the committee previously in relation to this meeting, but just to give some context, I held a focus session with clerks of the town and community councils, and that session was dedicated entirely to providing guidance, support, and advice in relation to how the clerks could start to prepare for those changes. The meeting was attended by Pwyllgor from One Voice Wales, and I hope that session was beneficial to clerks. Since then, I've been in regular contact with some clerks, and I know that the community councils that are impacted are now preparing and getting ready for those changes. And obviously, we've offered the support to those community councils if it's required. In relation to the feedback that we had last November, it was twofold, and the clerks requested more frequent meetings. So currently those are taking place on a quarterly cycle. So the first in March, which was the dedicated session, and then one in June, which I'll update on update the committee on now, and there'll be further meetings in September and December. And the purpose of the change is intended to provide more regular opportunities for engagement and for more focused and responsive discussion of any emerging issues that clerks are experiencing, and generally to strengthen the overall effectiveness of the forum. So in relation to those meetings, the meeting which was held in June of this year was presented jointly by myself and James Langridge Thomas, the head of Democratic Services, and we very much focused it on the Vale of Glamorgan Council and Town and Community Councils working together. And the key issues that were covered in that session were how clerks handle low-level complaints locally and encouraging early resolution before matters escalate, local resolution and mediation approaches available to councils, and the majority, if not all, of the town and community councils have adopted the local dispute resolution procedure. I updated the clerks in relation to the member code of conduct and standards issues, and recent themes and lessons arising from complaints which I was aware of, and that was provided to the clerks. We also considered best practice and learning points from decisions, particularly those relating to decisions by the Ombudsman and the Adjudication Panel for Wales concerning members of town and community councils in Wales. We discussed dispensations, and that's quite a slick process we've got in place with clerks and democratic services. And we also considered the Standards Committee independent members' observations and some key governance messages. And the slide deck and the associated papers that informed that session and that those discussions were sent to all clerks of the town and community councils, so they have those papers as reference. And generally, the theme throughout the meeting was promotion of early intervention and local resolution of disputes, obviously highlighting the need for good standards of conduct, learning from the decisions that have been made by the Ombudsman and the Tribunal, and focusing then on the stronger collaboration between the Vale Council and the Town and Community Council, Town and Community Councils. So there is a regular, not with all, but there is a fairly regular communication with clerks, and I hope that that has benefited clerks. It would be nice to see more of them attending, but I do appreciate and I sympathise with the position of some clerks who work sometimes 7 hours a week doing the job. They're not paid, but I've always emphasised to those clerks who are under pressure that they can contact me, and within my available resources, I will try and help.
Thank you very much. Janet, do you want a question or comment?
Just a quick question to Vicky. Just interested how many clerks do contact you outside of those quarterly meetings. Are they pretty engaged?
The clerks are, yes, and not all, because we've got some very, very experienced clerks in some of our town and community councils, particularly the town councils. They are very experienced. I think Cowbridge and Llanblethian recently had a new, well, recent-ish had a new clerk, and I did a session with her. But yeah, they're pretty, pretty experienced, and also clerks in the community councils. But I would say, on average, it may not just be queries in relation to standards and ethics. It may be governance issues that impact the council. It may relate to the Boundary Commission changes and their implementation, but I generally get at least 2 queries a week. Most of those are dealt with, but at least 2, if not more. But on average, I would say that's the number. Most of those are dealt with by email. Sometimes we'll jump on a call and have a discussion. And the recent queries in relation to standards and ethics, the clerks have been able to resolve those issues because lots of the issues and the concerns that are raised are generally quite low level. Some members of the public or members will go directly to the Ombudsman, and that's a matter for them, and they're at liberty to do that. But yes, that's probably the average number.
Thank you.
Ronnie?
Vicky, I'm certainly not critical of this process. I actively support what you've been doing, but I'm conscious of the fact that for the first meeting there were 7 apologies, and for the second one there were 20. And you've reflected on the possible reasons for that, and the fact that you have sent the slide deck and accompanying material out to everyone. Are you satisfied that that message is effectively understood, or is there more work to be done? Thank you.
Yeah, I think that the message is understood. I think it is simply a question of time and capacity on their parts. We have had some discussions about the need for quarterly meetings going forward because of the attendance levels, and it is something that we'll be reviewing in September. So I suspect what we'll do, and Amy and I haven't discussed this yet, but we will likely email the clerks and get a view really of whether or not that trial that we've been progressing in terms of increased frequency of meetings and the style of those meetings, the structure of those meetings, because we were keen for those meetings to be chaired by a clerk from one of the town and community councils, and for them to take the lead and to bring issues to the meetings, because it's easy for me to sit there with a slide deck and talk through all the points that I've just raised, but it's much better if the meetings are more engaged. So yeah, and we've also held them on a hybrid basis as well. So the invitation is open to clerks to come into the chamber. As I said earlier, I suspect that a lot of it is capacity and resource. Some may think that they don't need that level of support. So I suspect what we'll do is we'll do a bit of a survey in the autumn. Or rather, no, earlier than that, because the next meeting's in September, and we can perhaps come together then in September and decide how we can structure the meetings going forward.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? No?
Yes, Councillor Summers is indicating, Chair.
Okay, sorry, Councillor Summers, I can't see you.
That's all right.
Carry on.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just like sort of really, I guess, on behalf of the town community councils and the contact that I have with them, to pass on the appreciation of the clerks to Vicky and Amy for these meetings. To pick up on the point about attendance, I think it is very much a case of availability at the time. We find this with local meetings for clerks and councillors as well. You can get quite a marked difference between one meeting and the next, and it's for no obvious reason. If there's a particular subject, then that might be pressing, then obviously that brings people out. But I think, you know, the meetings and the availability, the knowledge that they can contact and speak with the monitoring officer, not just as the monitoring officer, but as somebody they know and have met, is useful and is appreciated. So I think that's worth mentioning, and our thanks to the team on that as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Fine. Okay. In the absence of any other person wanting to speak, we'll move on to item 9, which is you again, Vicky, Monitoring Officer Update Report.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is to update the Standards Committee in relation to the recent communications I've had with the Ombudsman. We do move into part 2 for discussion in relation to that detail. In relation to the part 1 report for transparency, the committee is asked to note the content of the report and the verbal update which will be provided under part 2. And obviously, as I noted earlier, the any concerns or complaints made to the Ombudsman are confidential unless and until the matter is referred back to the Standards Committee. So those matters fall under part 2.
Thanks for that, but wasn't that to deal, weren't you going to deal with the Welsh Monitoring Officers meeting?
Apologies, I've skipped ahead. I do apologise.
You've gone to 10 instead of 9.
I apologise, yeah. So I'll go back, apologies. It's been a long morning. In relation to this report, my apologies, the Monitoring Officer Update report in respect of the recent Monitoring Officer Group meeting. In relation to that meeting, obviously the committee are asked to note the report and the update that I'll provide. The recent meeting took place on the 5th of June. And as usual, the representatives from the Ombudsman's office were present, and they updated on current complaint trends and performance. And what we were hearing is that there's been a significant reduction, which is pleasing to hear, in relation to the backlog of cases, and an increase in the number of investigations which they had been able to conclude, which was good to hear. So the representatives on behalf of the Ombudsman were reporting that the result of all that is improved timelines of decision making, which is good to hear. However, complaint volumes have increased. There's been some internal work ongoing within the Ombudsman's office in relation to revised working practices, and we were hearing that there's more proportionate handling of cases and greater communication with monitoring officers across Wales in relation to the progression of those investigations, which has been received quite positively. The Ombudsman's representative shared some recent case examples, none relating to this authority, and it was interesting to hear because there was a discussion then about the range of sanctions that were available in relation to cases where breaches had occurred of the Members' Code of Conduct, including censure and suspension. We had a discussion about the development, and this will be of particular interest to the committee, of the national induction materials for councillors, which cover the training on standards and ethics. There was a small working group established, which I was a part of, which was designed in partnership with the WLGA to provide a consistent pack of resources across the authorities in Wales, which monitoring officers could adopt, obviously subject to local variations and amendments to suit the individual council, which can be used for the member induction programme for future local government elections. And obviously we've got a local government election upcoming in May 2027. So the committee would be pleased to hear that in partnership with the WLGA, that work has already started. So we have a suite of documentation which all monitoring officers will be considering and preparing locally for delivery as part of the member induction programme following the elections next May. The pack that is being developed, and I will share it with members of the Standards Committee, obviously deals with the ethical decision making, standards of behaviour, but there's also emphasis on responsible use of social media. And I think that's in recognition nationally of the increasing risks associated with online engagement. So that material is in hand, which I'll circulate, and it would be good at some stage to have a discussion about that with the committee, particularly to hear their views in relation to what more could be added or what could be changed suitable for the Vale of Glamorgan, and that's something, Amy, I think we could arrange in the early autumn. Finally, then. The chair invited suggestions for agenda items for the next National Standards Committee Forum. I understand there have been recent discussions within the forum which have focused on sharing approaches to standards matters across authorities, and in addition the operation of standards committees, dispensation and hearing procedures. So my colleague Justine Cass, the Deputy Monitoring Officer here, supports the forum, and I know provides support and advice in relation to those issues. And I think the point was being made, obviously wasn't at the discussion, is that examples of good practice and the attempt to promote greater consistency in the application of the ethical standards across Wales is something that the forum were desirous of. So that completes the update.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments on that report, and including item 10, correspondence with the Public Service Ombudsman for Wales? No? Right. So item 11, Amy, nothing has been referred to me for decision as to whether it's urgent or not.
That's correct, Chair. Yes.
Yeah, good. Okay, so that concludes part 1, and if you all agree, we'll move into part 2.
Thank you, Chair. If you could bear with me one moment and I'll confirm when we're in part 2 session. And for the sake of the recording, for any members of the public observing, the committee will not be resuming into part 1. Thank you.